country. Thank you. Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands where we work and live. Council celebrates the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters in the New South Wales Central Tableland. Just before the listed item 1, apologies, I'm listing an item 1A, and that will be that Council allows Member Smith to participate in today's meeting via audio visual link. Mover, please. Thank you. Member Reynolds and Member O'Connor seconding. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. I think Councillor Smith's already on. Is he? Lisa, thank
Hello.
you. Item 2 is the disclosure of interest. I'll read the recommendation, but I won't read the statement of ethical obligations, as I understand everyone. Disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. Number 2, if any member has any declaration of interest, they should do so now. Does any member have any declaration of interest? Can I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Member Fry, Member Leslie, all in favour? Aye. Item 3, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of June 2022.
I'm happy to move that, Mr. Chairman, but could I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick addressed the council on a matter of African lovegrass moving into Lithgow LGA from Lithgow LGA into the Oberon area. I raised this matter and Councillor O'Connor also discussed it at our last council meeting. And the response was that the council would be approaching Upper Macquarie Council for further information. Did that happen? And what was the outcome?
I'll ask the General Manager to comment on that.
I haven't been approached. I don't know whether Chris has been approached.
Thank you.
Would you like us to make contact? We can go back the other way.
That'd be important, I think. Yes.
Person to the General Manager, Lithgow?
Yep, that would be the way it would do it. Yeah, excellent. If that could happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Minutes. Thank you. Discussion. Any matters arising from the minutes? I've got a couple of changes that I have given to the General Manager. The first is that Member Watts did provide an apology. Written.
Thank you. Yes, that has been amended. In
the second page 6, which is the second page of the minutes. In the table, first page down, under the item 1 of those minutes, listed the 9th of September 2022. That should be the 16th. Any other matters I raised? Not on the minutes, I can't recall.
16.
Sorry, that's the correct date. The 9th is the correct date. Sorry, the 16th in item. I got confused myself.
That's right.
Thank you for Member Reynolds. Yes, I can attend on the 9th. I can't attend on the 16th. There was a disconnect. I got it the wrong way around. Yes.
And that has been amended as well, Mr. Chairman, in the record. Councillors, these are minor administrative amendments, so I didn't update each of you. I didn't see it change the content of the business.
Yes. I think, yes. So they were the only two. So subject to those amendments, all in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried unanimously. Right. So we go to item 4, which are the matters in progress, which are listed there. I think what we do, although it's not that, the recommendation is that, it's not listed there, is that this table of matters in progress be noted. Probably the appropriate thing by the members. And I will, so I'll ask for someone to move that. Member O'Connor, seconder. Member Ewan, and I will then ask the General Manager to talk about those matters, each of them.
Thank you, Chairman Andrew. This is new in our agenda, matters in progress. The matters to be recorded here will require a resolution of the council. So it's these are council matters that you see that you would like to follow that have been resolved by the council. We've gone back over a couple of months to pick up these items that we believe are of interest to the council on a regular basis so that you can follow them. The only way they come out of matters in progress is again by council resolution to close them. So we were hoping that this may give you a quick reference to some of the key points that you have been pursuing. One way of getting matters in this list is by notice of motion. Councillor Bruce Reynolds, Member Bruce has one item that he has been pursuing for a little while that hasn't been addressed as yet in relation to the
targets.
The targets, the what targets?
The strategic.
The second one, thank you, the strategic operational plan for meeting the WAP targets. Now, I haven't reported on that to this meeting, but Bruce, I can say to you that the discussion has commenced and I do plan to recommence some regular meetings with the whole team. And the first matter on that agenda is to ensure that this matter is addressed, and you will receive a report on how we are going about establishing those targets at the next ordinary meeting of the council.
I think it's also mentioned later on.
It is mentioned.
Yeah, yes, it is. The first one, the State Prosecution Fund, is a matter that has been on the agenda for a period. That is being progressed at the moment, and you will hear during tonight's meeting how that is being progressed. Developing regional guidelines for the engagement of state bodies is a matter that I believe is critical to the organisation. We have commenced arranging meetings with both the Department of Primary Industries and Local Land Services at the CEO level. And also there is a plan and an agreed plan to meet with the Minister on this matter. And that will be following our discussions with DPI and MLS. And I'm sure the Chairman may have some comments there. The next matter that I saw as important to the group to have ongoing sort of information about is our roadside spraying program and the consultation that is now occurring with each of the constituent councils. We are still locked into last year's arrangements, but we do plan during this year to encourage councils to move to a more strategic approach where all roads are sprayed once in each 3 or 4 month period, and to see whether we can get agreement on that approach. The last matter is whether or not the council has any rights in regard to the policy that was developed when the Biosecurity Act was fully implemented. This council was one of the very first in the local control authorities for weeds across New South Wales to really align their compliance and enforcement arrangements with the new legislation. So we are looking at some of the mechanisms that we use to assess the risk of the properties that we inspect and also to follow up on those. It also involves those the sharp end of compliance with penalty infringement notices and prosecution. So I am wanting to ensure that the council does have those recognised as being the property of the council. I believe we have got some intellectual property rights there, but that is still being explored and we'll keep that one going.
That's coming on subsequently.
So, Mr. Chairman, we haven't done the research on the actual resolutions of those, the dates and what that resolution was, but I will update this for you prior to each meeting's going forward, and then you can flick through them, and I will ask you to recommend the closure of them when I think those tasks have been complete. So during the course of this evening's meetings, if there are matters that are raised that you want to place into matters in progress, you do that by resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments on that? Member Reynolds?
I'm just going to congratulate the General Manager for having this table and actually updating the council on a regular basis on where things are up to. So it's a great foundation and congratulations on developing it.
I suppose the only comment I could make is with these, it would be good to have for each of the actions a target date. That doesn't mean it has to be achieved, but if we can have a target date, because
That could
the member what will know that I'm always pushing our general manager. Well, yes, you've got an action, but when is it going to be done?
I've already had a discussion with Member Watt on the exact subject.
The other thing I would say is, have we had any feedback from the constituent council GMs on, I would call it 1, 2, 3, 4 items, strategic roadside spraying rotation?
We haven't had any responses to the information I've provided to them. I'm now following up and seeking to have meetings with each of them individually on the subject.
Okay, and I cannot remember, but for item 5, I don't know if it was in the general update you gave us, or whether it's later, where you deal with the some intellectual property in relation to our obviously compliance enforcement policy. I think it's one who wants to use it, and we have to make a commercial decision as to whether, and that is that. I can't recall that. I certainly read it. This week was your update some 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, correct. We're having commencing a discussion with the other county councils across New South Wales that are control authorities for weeds. There are 5 of us. Some of them are larger than us, and I have made approaches to the general managers of those authorities to start a conversation about what we are doing here and seeking some input into what they are doing. I've gone and had a look at their compliance and enforcement policy as the one that's of interest to us, and believe that ours is far more mature than what I've seen at the other councils, and we'd be seeking their views on possibly moving toward having some commonality in our approach, and seeing if we can get an understanding from the other councils that that could be a good step forward. Those discussions commence next week, so follow that one over the coming weeks.
And would we be able to not only obtain reimbursement for the time and effort we put into creating our compliance enforcement policy, we leave that aside, maybe leave that just on the side, but also if we have to undertake training of the personnel as to how to utilise our compliance and enforcement and how to implement it appropriately, there's obviously potential for a fee for service.
There's several options there, and I would like to think that the initial discussions will raise those, but we have a little list of likes and dislikes that we want to bring to the table, and the points that you raise are those matters that if there was a view to having a common approach to compliance and enforcement for weeds in New South Wales from those county councils, we could take the lead with our processes and system now and reach some agreement with them about what we would be compensated for the maintenance of that system and the training, etc., to bring those other councils onto it. But there's a lot of work to be done in convincing the Department of Primary Industries that we are taking an appropriate approach.
Yes.
Trying to have local land services also support us in that area is of absolute importance. So we have convened those meetings coming forward.
My impression is we've got more support from LLS than DPI.
My understanding is DPI's position's changed. They approached us to talk. So I think there is some rethinking in there at the moment, which is...
So when Peter...
Yes. we have the DPI head of biosecurity in New South Wales from DPI. Chris has made arrangements for us to meet face to face with him, and we are preparing a presentation to him about our system, so that he is aware of what we are doing and how we went about
Is that John Tracy or John?
Is Peter, Dr. Peter Turner.
Turner, Peter Turner, he was a bloke who was, yes, but his boss is the bloke who was next to him at the leaders conference to stop.
I'm sorry, I don't know the hierarchy of
I do, right, yeah.
industries. It's a bit of a.
Okay, so because Peter Turner was not particularly supportive at one stage, he's revised his position, I take it. We're trying to revise it. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Yes, I think Peter would be very supportive.
Yeah, if we can get him in the room and show him what we're doing. I think there's possibly a misconception that there may be too much of a focus on prosecution and penalties rather than improvement to the risk that are imposed by weeds across the region. I don't think our policy overemphasises a harsher approach to our role. I think we need to ensure that they read the full document, because it's very clear that we want to work with the landholders to get a best outcome for everyone. And I'm happy to, can I just add that we've had our first prosecution in the local court, and I won't name names, but the outcome of that was something that I think it's the best outcome for us, that the person that we were taking action against, the magistrate sent them away on just about a good behaviour notice for 12 months, not to break the law, and particularly to comply with the direction that we've given them. So that's just a wonderful outcome. He's not getting financially penalised, but he now has to invest in improving that problem. And that's a Millthorpe property that is covered in blackberry, and it's very close to the township. It has a waterway through it. And this fellow is just hasn't engaged with us. He's ignored us, and his efforts have been minimal. But the magistrate, I think, demonstrated a good sign there, Mr. Chairman.
Right. All in favour of the recommendation of the matters in progress table? Item 5, I haven't prepared a so we go to item 6, governance program. This is divided into a number of areas, so we'll have to approve the recommendations for each part of this, I believe. So the first is the business activity strategic plan 22-23 to 2032-33, and the operational plan for 2022-23. The recommendation is that the Office of Local Government have now been advised of Council's business activity strategic plan 2022-23 2032-33, and the operational plan for 2022-23 that has been posted on Council's website. So I have a mover for the recommendation, please. Councillor Member Fry, seconder. Member Watt. Any discussion on this matter, gentlemen? Ladies? All in favour? Aye. Right, we move to item 6.1.2, which is public liability and indemnity insurance. The recommendation is that council notes that it is a certificate of currency with Jardine Lloyd Thompson in public liability and professional liability insurance. As I understand it, discussed with General Manager, our policies run from 1st of July to the 30th of June, so this has just recently been renewed. Could I have a move of the recommendation, please? What's that, Member O'Connor?
Yep.
All right. Having trouble. Seconder?
Thank you.
Member Ewan. Any discussion on this matter, gentlemen?
Question.
My only comment, oh, sorry.
Have our premiums risen much?
There's been a small increase and notably one that's not consistent with what's happening with insurance policies across the country at the moment. So I think you've been placed quite well. The only question I raise here is that there will be a time in the future where we need to test the market on these insurances. Just sitting with one insurer for an extended period of time, and I believe that the county council has been with the same insurer since its foundation. So that's not 8 years. That seems like a long time to stay with one insurer. But there is a market out there, and I don't think councils need to be bound to that practice. So I may be coming back to you with some recommendations around possibly going to tender or seeking some quotations.
So my understanding is, sorry.
I was just going to make a suggestion. When talking with the other county councils, it may be worth just finding out about their.
Cheers.
My only comment was I'm assuming, I think Jardine and Lloyd Thompson are the insurance brokers.
Correct.
So, and we've had them for that period of time as well.
Yes, they establish what they call is the statewide mutual, and that is actually the board and of the mutual, and we are members of that mutual. And JLT are the brokers for that mutual.
Right. Okay. So, because there has been, as I think Councillor Reynolds, very large increases in insurances, maybe not so much in the public liability, definitely in the property area. They've been, I've heard it's increasing up to 25% premiums, so even in areas not flood. The other question is, and I did speak to the general manager pre the meeting. I was going to have a look at the policy just to ensure, I think we'll have a look at the policy just to ensure how well it covers our area.
I'd love to share with you the document, Mr. Chairman.
Right, so all in favour of the recommendation?
Right.
Go to 6.2, 6.2.1 is the compliance and enforcement policy. Council, the recommendation is the council notes the report on the compliance and enforcement policy, and in particular, which was alluded to previously about being approached by other local weak authorities requesting access to the tools that support council's compliance and performance policies, which was spoken about by the general manager a few minutes ago. Remember for that recommendation, please. Councillor Leslie, Member Leslie, Mr. Fry, second. Discussion on this issue. I think the general manager has addressed some of the issues on discussions with local authorities previously this meeting. All in favour?
Aye.
6.2.2 is assess policy review schedule. The recommendation is the council notes the report in the upcoming update of the agency policy register 2020. Move it to accept that recommendation, please. Member O'Connor, Member Fry, seconded. Discussion on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, you raised a point with me.
Yes.
In relation to a prior report that council used to receive, which was indicating to councillors the policies that were coming due for review in the next 6 months. I'm happy to provide that type of report to you so that you are aware. I might include in your next business paper the actual policy register so you know what our policy situation is. It's not like the constituent councils, it's quite brief. And it's primarily about our compliance with the Local Government Act. The ones that move over to biosecurity are limited to a couple of policies.
And obviously the standard policies, work health and safety.
Correct.
Correct. And the other ones like the rest of the workplace bullying, general ones.
Yes.
And obviously our compliance and enforcement policies. Yeah. So yes, the previous general manager David Young had this policy register, so I'm assuming the agency policy register that is indicated was updated last in 2020.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation? next recommendation is 631, the unaudited general purpose financial statements 2021, 2022. The recommendation is in two parts. Council authorises the chairperson, Andrew McKibben, and deputy chairperson Bruce Reynolds to sign the statements by members of page 2 of the general purpose financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2022. Second part is submit the general purpose financial statements to the external auditor for audit. Have a mover, please. Member O'Connor. Member White. Okay, we have some discussion on the financial.
Just a question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. In layman's term, what is the statement by members? In inverted commas. There.
That's us.
Well, the statement by members is attached in the
True and accurate
statement,
record.
which says it's a true and accurate record of the basically.
They're signing on our behalf as a council,
Oh, okay, thank you.
just legislative requirement.
So there's usually at the end of the financial statement, you have a statement, first thing signed by the chairman, then you have when you go to the audit, they sign off the second letter. There are four of the facts and financials, I'm sure the same as with your council.
Okay, thank you.
So if they're wrong, you go to jail.
Oh, well.
But after.
Only those two.
We just resolved for them. It's all of us or none of
Any
it.
other discussion, Member Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On notice, given we don't have the auditor with us today, but when the auditor joins us in about a month's time, a couple of things that I just noticed with the accounts, particularly the high level of receivables, the very high level of payables, and also the provisions for employee benefits, which have increased substantially. So I'll put those three on notice for the auditor, but they're three areas that I'd like discussion when the auditor comes back to us with the report.
All those Okay, so we're confirming the 9th of September, which is after having it after or before our workshop.
Are we having it during it? There's been a suggestion that we'll open the workshop in the middle of the day, have a sandwich, commence the workshop, close the workshop, have the extraordinary meeting and hear from the auditor, close that, and then if there's still discussion in the workshop, to continue that then. So you'll get a business paper for that extraordinary meeting on the 9th. So looking to have you all here, a quorum here at 12 o'clock for a sandwich. And 9th of September, wasn't it? 9th of September. So that, yeah, so as the gentleman just said, start the workshop. Is it 2:30? No, we're going to break at 1 for the extraordinary meeting. Right. And then we return to the workshop after that.
Question,
Go for it,
does that remove the requirement on the 16th as in our schedule?
Correct. That was an error in the business paper. So we're correcting that now. Thank you very much.
Well, that's a question I had later, so I'm early. Beautiful.
Well,
And the auditor's been confirmed.
the auditor has been confirmed, and that it will again mean that this county council could be the first in the state to complete their financial records for this financial year, which is a wonderful achievement. And that effort.
Can I? All in favor? Could I have all in favour of the recommendations in two parts? Any against? Carried unanimously. 6.3.2 is the statement
just introduce 6.3.
Member Smith, what was the last thing you heard?
Now I'm back. I heard basically my question.
So we go to the 6.3.2, Mr. Chairman.
Statement of investments.
So did you hear the?
I think we need to redo the
recommendations on
resolution.
financials?
We need to redo the resolution of
Yes,
the
I think so
financials.
we'll go back to 6.3.1. You heard we had a proposal, we had a seconder because your question was after that. I'm putting the recommendations on the financials of 6.3.1. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. We now go to 6.3.2. I'll read that again. Recommendation is the council notes the statement of investments report as of the 31st of July 2022. I think it was moved by Member Fry and Member O'Connor seconded it. Discussion on the investments report, please.
Yeah, I was just asking about the rate in that short term of a account. Was there any movement on the rate? They're going up substantially. Have we made contact with Westpac to see if they can offer us something better?
I'll have to refer the question. Lisa.
To take it if you
You can take it on notice.
Well, it would be to do with our investment
policy, which is coming up shortly.
Yeah, and
Oh,
so
right.
once we move to that investment policy, we must start to look at the growth of those funds, those
Perfect.
invested funds. So
Yep,
this is just the basics at the moment.
yep,
Will change shortly.
right.
Does that help?
Does, yep, that's helpful. Thank you.
Member Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. As of the 31st of July, a little bit below this time, well, I suppose that's the end of the first quarter, but have we received the funds from all constituent councils yet, or where are we up to with funding?
Lisa can address that, but I'm aware 2 councils have paid the bill and we're waiting on 2 councils.
Thank you.
Do we know who the 2 are? So
To be sure we do. Would you like that to be
Yes.
discussion?
Name and shame.
No?
No, but I would suggest that following the meeting, maybe you get around to speak to the councillors from those councils who might be able to mention to their.
I can do that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All in favour of the investment policy? Unanimously.
No, the
It's investments.
Sorry, investment.
Position.
That's about you and me.
yeah.
Now,
Council, no, yeah, sorry, now we go to 6.3.3, which is the investment policy. Apologies. The recommendation is that council agrees to place the amended investment policy on public exhibition for 28 days. If after 28 days on public exhibition there is no feedback, it becomes policy. Member Reynolds. Member O'Connor, I note that Member Reynolds had considerable input into this, using his own councils as a basis. It will allow us greater flexibility in investment, still within the guidelines.
I was just going to add one thing, Mr. Chair. So there were a couple of tweaks that we needed to do, hence why it's come back to council. But if councillors want to look at a social investment policy or environmental or something along that lines, that we can actually look at that down the track. But at least get this policy up, and then we can look at modifying it at a later date if there is so a desire to change.
Yes, Chair.
So that's all I have to say.
Okay, so I would just ask the general manager if this policy already has been on public exhibition, has it? Because the tweaks has it had to go back on.
No.
it has not.
It has gone up. So after the May meeting, it didn't go on public exhibition, right? Okay. All right. All in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. 6.4 is human resources and the organisational structure. The recommendation is that council note the report on proposed changes to council's organisational structure. And council notes that proposed changes will impact upon council's operational budget, hence the matter will be brought back to council for endorsement via the first quarterly budget review review in October 2022. Remove it, please. Member Reynolds. Member O'Connor. Thank you. Discussion on this organisational structure, which is quite crucial to our organisation, as we all know. Thank you. No, thank you, Member Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Particularly with continuity of operation, that we need to look at that, but also to potentially reduce the burden or weight on the Chief Biosecurities Officer's shoulders in spreading the, as in enforcement a little bit wider. So having potentially a couple of others, but I look forward to how and the new structure, and also then how much extra it's going to cost the organisation. But I endorse trying to move us forward, and particularly if we were to lose, for example, the Chief Biosecurity Officer, we would be very much hampered for a long period of time. So important that we have more than one person able to do each other's role, I think, even in a small organisation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. I think if I can make a comment, I think we all look forward to seeing it, I suppose, in more graphic detail and seeing what the potential financial implications are. But I think in general, we all support the concepts, and this will mean, I think, greater strength in the organisation structure. So in general, I think we all support. Okay, any further comments? All in favour?
Aye.
6.42 is the General Manager's performance management. Obviously, the details of this performance management we looked at more closely in the confidential area. And the recommendation is that Council notes the report that's set out before, which just gives the general parameters of the agreement without giving very much on the specifics, which we have gained and all gained in confidential. Move, please. Member Ewan, Member White. Yep. Well, any discussion on this? All in favour? No. Item 7 is the Landholder Support Program. 7.1 is the aerial spraying program for 2023. The recommendation is that Council notes the report. Can I move it, please? Member O'Connor, thank you. Discussion on this item, please.
Do we have an update on whether the supply of herbicide is dubious?
Yes, through the General Manager, Chief Biosecurity Officer.
Through Mr. Chair. Yeah, so as you know, the two main sides of the program is one being Blackberry, one being Tussock. The Blackberry side of the program, we're secure there in terms of all the products we need to run that program. The side that's in question at the moment is the Tussock side of the equation. We've got chasing supply in a number of different areas of that, but as councillors will be aware, unfortunately all the importers get it from the same spot overseas. So unfortunately, until one gets it, the others aren't most likely to have it. At this stage, the last comments we got was potentially looking at products becoming available from November, December onwards at this stage, but we're constantly trying to keep an eye out for anything that's going to.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Where is it manufactured?
So the raw tech comes out of China.
Yeah.
We've got good relationships with China right now too, so
Yeah.
that's going to get easier.
So if we're hopeful that November, December, does that mean that the manufacturing plant is intended to recommence then?
We're not sure. That's what we're getting told around then, and we're getting the same story from a number of importers around about that same sort of, like they're varying a little bit, but roughly around that same sort of time. But unfortunately, until that physically turns up with them, we sort of don't know.
We've placed an order with conditions that the
So we've got,
So we're in the queue.
yeah, we've got orders to use a number of different ones.
Shoveling pigs until then.
Correct.
You laugh.
Yes, member.
So there are some alternatives, of course, for spot spraying out there, but do you expect it to be more expensive as well?
Potentially, from what we've been told at this stage, it could be double what it was before. There was the last of the product. After everyone else ran out, there was some product, very small amount of product turned up, but someone had scored away. And that was going for over double what the market price was before it disappeared. What they're saying to us is they don't even have a price at the moment, so until it hits them, they can't even give us a ballpark at this stage.
It shows how good those relations are with the supplier, doesn't it?
So, General Manager, I know this has been raised before. Do you, and we understand the federal and state, well, I'm not sure if the current federal member, the federal minister is aware, but should we be making the federal minister aware of the concerns, and should we be doing this more through maybe it's an item for the joint organisation agenda as we're now a member, but this is a severe impact, particularly on the central tablelands with both Serena, Tussie and Chile and then grass. How we're going to raise, I think we're going to have a meeting, but it's probably really in the federal realm.
We haven't made any representations at this time. I'm not wrong, but I'll be hoping that the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries may be all over this issue, and that appropriate representations are made by the current government to the federal government. This problem, because, as you say, it's a significant issue to agriculture in this part of the world, and I'm sure in other parts of the world.
So maybe it's a polite confirmation in your chats with the relevant state minister, Minister Saunders, to ensure he's onto the issue, which, like you said, I'm sure he is.
I think it was raised in the state week Chief Biosecurity Officer. You might have some more information as to how much it's been heightened.
Straight into signature.
Yeah, so, yeah, part of it is saying there's a great workshop that we had, about a month ago. It was raised then and quite strongly, not just from us, but from a lot of people that emphasised the concerns on. Also through the Macquarie Valley and our regional meetings, it's been quite vocally pushed along, trying to be pushed up as well. And we've been talking this with them at those levels, but probably the last 18 months or more, we've been trying to push them along. So we've been trying to let them know for quite a while.
Right, okay.
But it's the minister, is what we're asking. Let the minister know.
All right.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, sorry, is that a question? You know,
It was,
I was thinking.
Here we go.
Yes.
Maybe
It's on the state minister. I know the state minister is aware of it, but how much is the federal minister aware of it?
I can't answer those questions. I had some other questions on this matter
Oh,
that I've been trying to raise your
I
attention.
thought you were waving your hand to say you had an answer.
No, I wanted to get your attention.
So
Mr. Chair.
he's coming down.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, and I did have a chat with the Chief Biosecurity Officer before the meeting with regard to alternatives. So whether it's glyphosate or whether there are other chemical alternatives which aren't as effective, but as in if we can't obtain flupropionate sources, that we may have to look at them for particularly roadside if we run out of chemical. So just as in and I know the Chief Biosecurity Officer has been looking at some alternatives, but there's nothing that exactly replaces flupropionate. The second point that I'd like to highlight with regard to the aerial spraying program, that we probably do need a cut-off date. That if, for example, we don't know that we can gain supplies by the 31st of December or the 31st of January, that we then don't progress with the serrated tussock program, but we continue with the blackberry program, so that we don't put a lot of resources into a program that we might not be able to undertake. I don't, and the chief biosecurity officer or general manager may have a better idea of the date, but I think we should put a target date where we call it one way or the other, Mr. Chair.
You wouldn't want to send the wrong message to people who, to potential clients. You know, so.
Well, I understand that we're probably, when we're getting people for that program, we should be saying, yes, the program will go ahead subject to the availability of chemical. I understand that's probably what's being said, isn't it? The other thing is, and I just mentioned this, obviously serrated tussock has been a problem in the area in the Central Coast for a long time. And there wasn't a grown enough of Campbell had a lot to do with it, people are probably aware of. And I do recall that there were two chemicals that could be mixed together and were used in aerial programs pre-flupropanate. I don't know if those chemicals are still available or can be used, but I know I might probably know what it is. So the Australian Polaris followed. So there, as I said, I don't know if the chemicals are still available or, but there was something that was used and it's agreed. And I can't remember the chemicals, but the two that were mixed, I do know. We had two chemicals mixed together.
What year are you talking, Mr. Chairman? You asked me that.
Doesn't glyphosate do a bit too?
No, it wasn't.
It does, you
Yeah.
can use glyphosate, but it kills everything.
Yeah, right.
There is one that,
Almost things.
Yeah.
haloxypop, yeah, haloxypop is another one that's listed as
This was a very old known chemical, and I think they were looking in the 1960s.
Gramoxone.
No, Amapro or Am something, and no, it was something else.
Well, let's sit here and try and guess it.
No, I can't guess. All I'm saying is it might be doing some research on that.
Warm to it too.
Methamphetamine?
Sounds like.
Yeah, so I suggest that I'll try and see if I can find anything. I'm not sure I will, but I
Two
will
consonants.
deal with the general manager and then
Two syllables.
said there is something. Because I know that those chemicals, as I say, may not even be available these days. And I'm not sure if they did a complete wipeout or it was selective. I can't recall. Anyway, we'll leave that aside.
So coming back to my other point.
No, we're not setting up a lab.
We got to do the research ourselves, Mr. Chair. Could I, as in, I'm fully in favour of the desktop sort of audit, so as in along the lines to try and find. But given that we are proposing to start in February of next year, we do need either the 31st of December or say the 10th of January, we need to call it. Because if you put a lot of resources in, we've got a very finite budget and we've budgeted for a certain amount of income from both blackberry and from the serrated tussock for our staff as part of the budget. If we put resources in and time in, and then we don't go ahead with it, it's cost us
I think
a
we're
bit of
all
money.
agreeing with you, and we have to put a date. I suppose I was thinking that it's probably a matter for the general manager and the chief biosecurity officer to determine what the appropriate date is. Noting the comments you've made, I quite agree. So, but I think probably should take as an action, but I think to leave the determination of the date to
Possibly come back in the October meeting, Mr. Chair, with a recommendation.
well, we can advise the progress. It may be better if you think that the chemical is going to be available maybe in November, that I know November's getting late, but if we've given people the right prerequisites and say we're going ahead with the program subject to the availability of chemical, we can't advise you until this date. Maybe do we have another meeting? I can't recall the schedule.
Yes.
Can I just say anecdotally as well, with this chemical, a friend of mine owns a rural supply store and she said that it is sometimes a matter that it will just appear. It will just appear on a shipping container and they'll suddenly get stock and then they suddenly won't. like it could be here sooner than they estimate, of course, but it might not come, but good to have that solid cut-off date, so we're not expending too much human resources in organising chopper schedules and whatever.
If we don't.
I'm sure we'll get an update at the November meeting, but I also think I agree with the cut-off date. I think by November, we'll be in a position to say, right, and if something changes materially, on the 31st December, we anticipate we will be, or we want to be. But you two really have to go up with the date, we can't.
And it's, just guessing at the moment, so.
All right,
But I think if we deal with it as a public relations issue, because we are starting to talk to people, and that message is we don't know. So it's not much of a message, but it's a popular program. So people are still putting their hand up and they're accepting that. But I agree that as soon as we place the date on it, that makes it clear for all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Noting that point, can I have a move the recommendation? All in favour of the recommendation? The next item 8 is the road spraying program. The recommendation is the council comment here. I did speak to the fire security officer to say, obviously there'll have to be some further inspections in relation to things like blackberry, which may not have been evident at this time of year as to whether it's been killed or not, but so he indicates yes, there has to be some further inspections in relation to particular blackberry. Any other comments on this recommendation? Oh, sorry, did I ask you to move as a second, or I didn't move it? Leslie, second. Comment? Discussion on the items? All in favour? There you go. Goes unanimously. Item 9, biosecurity compliance. 9.1 is in relation to Weeds Action Plan 2021-22 finalisation. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Can I have a mover, please? Member Reynolds, Member White, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there is a administrative error in this report that went to councillors on page 21 of your business papers in note 2. It should read council focuses on high risk properties. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Mr. Chairman. So I think it reads there that we're doing something different than focusing.
Yes, Jim.
I know that there's effort in inspecting nurseries, pet shops and sale yards, and I would have thought that was a low priority.
So part of the conditions of that is there's certain things we must do, high or low. One of them, obviously, the main sale yards that we're dealing with is the CTRX. So you have to stop coming and going from there, or what it's being brought in with them. Nurseries and that, not so much in this area, but in more of the Sydney area, they have a lot of trade of things that are supposed to be traded back and forth. So that's where that sort of comes into it.
So more potential escapes from nurseries, that sort of
Potential
stuff.
garden escapees and stuff like that, especially things like a lot of the stuff, and things like that. They tend to pick up. And then pet shops, it tends to be, we don't seem to see it so much here, but once again, a lot of the aquatic weeds like alligator weed.
Oh, fair enough, yeah,
stuff
okay.
like that, which looks good in an aquarium.
Could have been
It's
illegally
out there.
imported, yeah.
Member Reynolds.
A question on page 20, I think it is. So with regard to the regional inspections program, that our target was 1,044. We've achieved 537, but the next line down is the re-inspection compliance 700. We've achieved 1296. So one assumes that we're able to interchange those two to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so the 1044 one is effectively private property and the initial inspection. But it's only private property, doesn't take into account any other type of land. That's the way the guys are doing that. The second one, the re-inspection side of things, is any property that we're inspecting for compliance. But what we're able to do is, because our focus has been on the compliance side of things and making sure we follow up what we need to follow up, what DPI is happy with the numbers is that we take those two numbers and add them together. And that's why we're up on one and down on the other. But when you add the two together, we're still actually greater than what we set out to achieve.
Beautiful.
So the target was 1,004 properties for those two, and we've achieved 1,833, is that right?
Yes, it is.
So this has always been a bane, and I know that Member Reynolds has been concerned because we're always lower on the first inspections than they require and higher on and it's been raised with us before that we're not achieving the number of inspections, and I've always had the view that DPI is looking at the first inspections, not the remainder. But we have actually had them accept that. So that means that we were doing more than penalises that if that's been the second inspection or first inspection.
Yes.
We got that in writing something, so a confirmatory email.
The other side of that too is moving forwards, we're allowed to adjust those figures somewhat moving forwards to greater represent what we're actually doing, achieving.
Yeah, there's no point.
So could I suggest that we maybe even if it's a email we generate, just say, just confirm that is the case. That, you know, because this has been an area we have had some concerns with previously, so you know, if we have a meeting, we can just say thanks very much for the meeting, you know, and confirm that.
This will be a matter of discussion with the DPI that is planned to occur.
That's, yeah, I'm just saying maybe a self-serving email to confirm that this is the case after that meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because it has concerned us at some point. Yes, member.
Just as a follow-on though, congratulations, we're talking about compliance, but also education, and particularly the amount of material that's been going out. It really shows that we're trying to educate and not just wave a big stick, that it's both sides, which is very good to show that we're trying to help and educate, and then those that don't comply are actually taking action against. So it really shows that we're achieving probably more than what the government really has asked us to do with WAP funding.
Yes, I agree. I think this table illustrates that we're actually overall achieving what we're required to under WAP. WAP and I, again, should be used every means possible to justify existing funding.
Looks like something would be good for the general manager's performance agreement. Chasing dollars.
That's right.
I think the discussion now.
So, and that is the utility.
Sharing, mate. Thanks, mate.
Member Smith, Member Smith, you on?
I'm back.
Dodgy bastard.
Right.
Kelso,
we-
that's
we
why
were
we're on the Kelso.
just at the bottom. So at the bottom of page 21, we were just discussing table 2, inspection summary 221-22.
Yep.
Which gives more factual figures as to actually what we are doing, which goes against what we're obviously reporting on the WAP funding. And the general manager, did you hear the general manager's little synopsis on, or I'll leave him to give it to you.
I didn't, sorry.
The only point I'd like to raise is that the council's had its enforcement policy now in place for 4 years. This data is demonstrating that. So the focus on re-inspection is driven by your policy. That, and I believe that will most really plateau over this year. I hope it plateaus over this year. We don't intend on doing something different during the year. And then you might find us able to get more involved in new inspections. So I think we've got a pattern here that our policy is driving, and I think it's a good pattern. And I'm looking forward to being able to share this with EPI and have a harder discussion about what we're actually doing here, so they understand that.
Cool.
And the whole.
The only question I had, which I think was highlighted previously, was the focus on re-inspection versus new inspection, but I'm comfortable with that previous.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman. Any further discussion on this matter? All in favour? Aye. We move to 9.2, which is penalty infringement notices. The recommendation is the council notes the report. Can I move it, please? Number 1. Member O'Connor, thank you. Second. Discussion on this matter, please. Can I ask manager, the general manager, the chief fire security officer? So of the pins owing, they've already been sent to the state debt recovery agency, or are we chasing some of them? Are some of them still in the 28 activity?
They're all agency owing.
And does that include the 4 that have been issued to Transport for New South Wales?
We've got a story about Transport in New South Wales, which is an unusual one. The council issued those penalty infringement notices by registered post. Surprisingly, in our mailbox, that registered post was mailed back to us. We communicated with Transport for New South Wales Legal Department. They were quite apologetic that had occurred. So we now sent the penalty infringement notices back to Transport for New South Wales. It's apparent to me that decision to just turn around that registered post and pop it back in the mail was pretty rude and misunderstood. But it now has been explained to Transport of New South Wales Legal Department. We sent it to 2 places, I believe. Yeah, one to the secretary, and that created a discussion with the new contractors. The new contractors are talking to council about the program they're now applying. I believe the penalty infringements has drawn a wonderful response from Transport, and I expect to see them paid in the coming weeks. Yeah.
I can't believe they would ask me to return them.
I think it's rude.
Has it been raised with the Minister for Transport?
I didn't write to the Minister for Transport, no.
He's running out of letterheads at this stage.
Steady as she goes.
All right, thank you very much for that update.
Let's have a state election.
Could I ask, and this statistic may not be available. So if we say of the bids issued 77 and there's 19 withdrawn, so we're looking at roughly 48, is that right? That have been enforced or owing or been paid, etc. Of the 48,
58.
58, sorry, 58, thank you for correcting me. Of the 58,
28.
how many landholders would have received two?
Yeah, good question. I'll take the first.
And I'm assuming one of the reasons I'm asking that is, although it's not in firm policy, obviously, when it gets to the stage of 2 pins, then we're looking at the prosecution. I just trying to get a feel as to how many we're likely to have in trial. Okay.
Take a question on that.
All right. All in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. 9.3 is the biosecurity compliance inspections for June 2022. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Members, I'm sure you're aware we looked at 21, 22 before. This is actually targeting what we've done in June 22. Member Reynolds?
Moved.
Oh, sorry, moved. Sorry, I haven't yet. Moved by Member Reynolds, seconded by Member O'Connor. Discussion on this issue, please. My only comment is I note that 93 of the 366 were high risk. But a number of those I would have assumed moved from high risk to low risk with the re-inspections underneath. Is that correct? Yes. And only 190, okay. So is there a general trend that we're getting? Would you say there's a trend that we're getting more people abiding by our weed control notices in particular and getting the work done to move to a lower risk situation than we've had previously? Or do you think there's still some reluctance? I mean, is our encouragement working better now than it was?
Chris, if you could address that.
I think we are seeing a trend of those working with us and moving in that direction. We're always unfortunately going to have that small group that doesn't want to go down that path. But we are getting better communication with landowners, and the more communication we can have, the better results we get.
I'll make a comment as well, Kevin. In my very short time here, I'm seeing and understanding from my review of people that ask for a review of a penalty infringement notice. There's a process there where they can say, what's this about? I want it reviewed. And that comes to the council, and we have to have a look at the situation and then respond directly to the person that's got the penalty infringement notice. There was a backlog of those when I arrived, so I had the opportunity to dig pretty deeply into those. What I'm seeing is that there is a demographic that we're dealing with that occupy land on the tablelands for purposes other than agriculture. And there's also a lot of subdivision of land. So there is a lack of knowledge, I think, in a lot of the occupiers or owners of land on the tablelands about their responsibilities in relation to biosecurity weeds. So I think we're always going to have a real problem group that just don't care because they're not using the land for the purposes that I think the Biosecurity Act is written. So we're always going to have, I think, the sharp end of the spear required for some of those landholders.
So I do recall one landholder that objected to a pin not so long ago. Has that objection continued, or has that been resolved?
It's gone silent after the communications that we had, but it wasn't an agreed silence by anyone. So I'm thinking they may wish to pick up the challenge on that matter, but I haven't had any challenges on it.
So when-
Could I suggest we talk about that,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, in closed council?
Yes, for sure, right.
Because I've got a question on closed council.
Right, fine, absolutely. That's why so all in favour of the report?
Aye.
Thank you. We go to 9.4, the strategic operational plan for meeting WAP targets. The recommendation is that council notes the report. Council will recall the notice of motion raised by member Reynolds and seconded by member Leslie. And there is a recommendation there that this be stood over until management has time to address it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't like being late with actions that have been requested by the council. We are on this one. I'm new. I didn't want to make rush decisions. I needed to get a greater understanding. Both Chris and Lisa have been absolutely fabulous in getting me up to speed. I feel more comfortable if I can just borrow another month of time. And I will bring that discussion back to the next meeting.
I'm happy to note this noted.
It is.
I'm happy to second it.
So
I'm happy to note.
okay, I mean, I would, before we vote on the recommendation, I know it's been moved by Reynolds, second by the council. Leslie's being the initiating proposer and seconder. I do note that I think the detail in table 9.1, table 1, at least gives members some indication of where we are with the targets, which probably that information we didn't have in. So I think that goes, I question both of you, but I think that goes somewhat interesting in where we are and what we have to aim for.
I do have another question in closed council on this matter as well, so
Right, okay.
I'll link my comments to that.
But I make that comment, so I think that makes the recommendation probably palatable to members and has had a proposal in sector. All in favour of the recommendation? Carried unanimously. So item 10 is the other matters, the Local Government New South Wales Conference, October 22. Council nominates one member of the voting delegate for council, the LGUSW annual conference to be held 23rd October 2022 to 25th October 2022. Have a mover, please. Member Fry, member O'Connor. Discussion on this matter, please.
So I'll ask a question. Mr. Chair, are you available to attend?
I actually haven't actually looked at my diary. I noted it when I went through. I will have to look. So maybe we should have me plus an alternative. Are you attending anyway?
I'm happy to attend, as in I have the offer from my council if, but the only trouble is I need to know. So I need to talk to you. If I was the alternate, I need to know tonight whether you can attend or not. But we can wait till after the meeting before we make a decision. If the council so is happy to have yourself as the main person and myself as the alternate, if you're unavailable.
On a side note, whatever we decide, Tim, if General Manager, can we ask that we've had two pull out from Bathurst Council. I believe they've already been paid up and I don't think it is refundable. So there could be worth a discussion there of just transferring the names because it'd be silly to get for that cash to go to waste. Because Councillor Smith, you pulled out, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, and Councillor Burke pulled out too. So I believe it's still, and it was offered to other councillors at Bathurst Council, but I don't think anybody took those positions. So if you can make representation, General Manager, to the acting General Manager of Bathurst to see if a transfer would be available if we haven't secured a refund. Save Up the quarry some cash.
About $1,000.
Yeah, yeah, it's not cheap.
But I understand it's $100.
That's right, yeah.
Correct.
Then that, are you suggesting that we would occupy the places that have been nominated by Bathurst Regional Council?
Yeah, the governance part is funny because that council has resolved to send X amount of councillors
Yes.
and spend that money. What I'm saying is that if that money, we can't.
You're looking to fund our.
Correct, correct, yeah, yeah. It would be,
Attendance at the conference.
that's right.
Of that credit.
Yeah,
sitting there.
But we would still need a resolution to delegate people to go under this council. So perhaps the resolution would read, or the recommendation would be changed to, obviously we have to have a line item in the budget in order to fund 2 spots if we are sending you to, which I think everybody's happy to send these guys.
I think we
No,
need to
my
make-
council will send me if Andrew, if I don't go as a representative, because we have 1 vote in this county council, so.
Yeah,
As in, we send 1 person anyway. My council has 4 positions, 1 for the GM, 3 for councillors, already paid for
right.
out of Blaney. So the mayor would be 1. The deputy mayor would probably go as Central Tablelands. Correct me if I'm wrong, councillor Ewan. So therefore, we have 2 other positions. So, but I have to let the mayor know because it's coming to resolution on Monday at my council, whether I am attending on behalf of Blaney or I'm attending on behalf of Upper Macquarie. The difficulty I see is because we're not attending on behalf of Bathurst, but we're attending as Upper Macquarie as a voting, whether we can transfer that across as a voting delegate.
And that's the unknown. Yeah, so it wouldn't be.
That's the question.
It wouldn't be, so I think we still need to resolve the delegate. I think the financial thing is a back end issue that we can sort out.
Sort it down as Bathurst giving a donation to the Upper Macquarie County Council.
Conversation with Bathurst Regional Council.
I'll tell him you're coming to.
Yes. Who is the
Aaron Jones.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Are we actually going to send our GM along with our delegate to the local government conference? Or not?
that's a good question.
Would the GM like to go?
will GM add value at the local government conference? I think my time, part-time, is spent focusing with the other control authorities that we discussed earlier in the day. Meet some of the larger councils would be a nice thing, but I don't think it's all that difficult to my role here at the moment and what I'm focused on. But thank you for offering that opportunity.
Members, what do we think?
Send me.
I see value in it, so you can feel our pain. I do see value in
It
it.
is a good opportunity, if I may, Mr. Chair, to network. In the general manager to network with other general managers. There are particular functions with other general. So that's a possibility. On the other side, this is 3 days with travel time. So it's 1 week's work where the general manager will be out of the system because so that's the negative, but there is a positive.
Doesn't he have a laptop?
The only downside is there's probably no other general managers from any other county council going, which would be of more value to the networking with other county council general managers as opposed to general purpose council general managers. Hence why the general manager's comment previously of better off to maybe spend 2 days at a meeting with other general managers if they're interested, rather than going to this to actually network with other general managers of county councils.
I've been to a lot of conferences.
Member Watson?
I'm sympathetic with the general manager's point of view here is relatively new to the position, has been to a number of conferences in his previous life, and I think developing relationships with other county councils is a real priority. So.
Okay, All right.
Clear as mud.
So we're not amending.
No, we're not
besides
amending.
the chair or deputy.
So can I have? Sorry?
The chair or the deputies will attend,
Yeah.
one or the other, but not two.
And you two have got to organise that in the next.
That's
24
right.
hours.
So can I have move the, so we all in favour of the recommendation?
No, just as is.
As
Yeah,
is.
just leave it.
We don't have, it says one member and we've decided the chair. We don't, I don't think we have to, no.
Put it in the minutes.
10.2.
Yeah.
County council meeting schedule. The recommendation is the council adopts the proposed meeting schedule. And we note that there's been a change in the
And we
second
had the extraordinary meeting there,
Yes.
Mr.
workshop and extraordinary meeting on the 9th September.
Till 12 o'clock.
Chairman Andrew. Make a call on councillors to ensure that we do get a quorum of that. Receiving a report from the auditor, so we'll need a quorum to act on it.
So do we, members, do we all believe that we can attend on that date?
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
Yes, I would have been apology the week after, so I'm pleased about that.
So would I.
That makes two of us.
Great.
So
Are you guys ever in your bloody LGAs or what?
I think from you, that's interesting.
Oh.
Oh,
What is
Chair,
it?
can I move this, but with an amendment?
Here we go.
I'm going to throw it out here, to change the meeting times to 1:30. I think 2:30 is too late. If there's a seconder that will support me to change, as in, so this is outside of the workshop meeting time, so the October, the November and the December meetings to 1:30.
I'll second that.
I'd like to leave it at 2:30.
Around a compromise.
We can debate it now.
How about a
All
compromise
right,
at 2 o'clock?
I believe the meeting should be at 2:30, that's my view.
Because you never know when you're going to get a truck stuck.
Any other-
Probably want to change it to 2:45 by today's standards.
Why don't we move to 2 o'clock?
With respect, Mr. Chair.
5:30, actually, like a council meeting.
Sorry, councillor Smith.
2 o'clock,
Meet in the middle at 2.
That's fine.
I'm fine with it.
2 o'clock.
What are we making it 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to
Member
amend the
O'Connor, what do you
amendment to
think?
2 o'clock.
Member O'Connor?
Yep, 2 o'clock is fine. Yeah.
That's fine, I'm flexible on it. It's either I make it or I can't. As far as the date goes, more so than the time.
Perfect.
Therefore, we have to, is someone moving the second, so the recommendation will be amended to read that council adopts the proposed meeting schedule.
We'll just change the meeting schedules.
Yeah.
Drop the 3 off them.
To 2.
And you have to add
The ordinary
workshop,
council meetings meet at 2 o'clock.
workshop and extraordinary council meeting
We'll add the extraordinary for the 9th.
on the 9th.
Meets at 12 o'clock.
There'll be 1 o'clock for the extraordinary.
But you don't need it in the schedule,
Oh,
because an extraordinary is just called
All
at
right.
any time, so it's not, doesn't have to be in the schedule.
Well, no, we know it's going to be called now.
One.
We do. but it doesn't-
We didn't know it was going to be called, but we know it's going to be called somewhere else on the list.
So as the mover of the amended motion that we put up, I'm happy for 2 o'clock. Councillor, Member Fry is happy for 2 o'clock.
I'm happy for that amendment.
Given that one of the reasons is we get so late in the afternoon. And that's why I wanted to bring it forward, because it's pushing, our meetings run for a long time and they still haven't finished yet.
And you're meant to be in bed at 6.
All right. Right, put the amended motion there.
Right.
Right,
Noted, the chairman's against.
that part of the vote. Right, item 11,
Oh.
notice of motion or rescission. The notice of motion. The Upper Macquarie County Council to undertake an investigation changing its trading name to Upper Macquarie Weeds Authority, for the report to be brought back to council.
So I'm happy to move that, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, and then I'll explain it.
And a second, please.
Second.
That's right. And we have some discussion back with Councillor Member Reynolds.
So I've had a look around the state. I've had a look locally. People know us as you go to someone, you say, I'm up at Macquarie County Council, or I'm a member. They go, who are you? What do you do? There's no explanation in what we do as a county council. We could be an abattoir county council, we could be a water county council, or in this case, we're a Weeks County Council. Then looking around the state, a number of county councils across the state have moved to rename themselves as a trading name. So we would stay the same as a county council. We'd still be under the Local Government Act as a county council, and all reporting requirements that would all stay the same. What you would do is have a different name as our trading name. So on our vehicles, on our website, we would have trading as Upper Macquarie Weeds Authority. So it's all on our letterhead, but how we promote ourselves so that it's an explanation of what we do. Northern Tablelands or New England, I think it is, they now trade as New England Weeds Authority. I think it's the Upper Hunter now trade as Upper Hunter Weeds Authority, and Central Tablelands Water is Central Tablelands County Council. So a number of the county councils have moved to a new. What I'm asking for is an investigation in case there is a huge cost or other ramifications, and a report be brought back to council at a future council meeting, hopefully in the near future. Before we're also looking at redoing the website. So to relaunch a website, we probably want to go with a new trading name at the same time. So, but the main aim is to come back with any ramifications or implications of us changing. And given the general manager is talking with other general managers, we can probably find out how easily it is to actually change our name, a trading name, as a county council. Hence why I've moved this notice of motion, Mr. Chair.
Good, right.
I think it's a good change. I think I was laughing at an analogy earlier. We found our teeth as an organisation in our prosecutions now, and Councillor Reynolds just wants to whiten them and make sure that we're aesthetic, and we've got a new lease on life, and it's more authoritarian look, I guess. In the investigation, obviously there'll be a cost benefit of rebadging, clothing, cars, livery, all that sort of stuff's got to come into account. And then in that investigation, we as council members with a small scale council like this, especially the chair and the deputy chair, it blurs the lines of non-executive director from time to time, where you guys are heavily involved in some of the operational side of especially finance and stuff. That's a known fact. And a piece like this, in that investigation piece, if this motion would be to be successful, I'd welcome an approach by the general manager or anybody to see how my media business could help in terms of free cost, no cost, free cost, because you've all got to chip in from time to time. You put your hours into your finances. It's a way I could contribute to the council in the graphic design stage, website development stage, and the photography and that sort of stuff that we do as a business. But we would do it obviously for zero.
I think free is a good cost as long as there's no obviously conflict of interest.
That's right. Well, there would be a conflict. I wouldn't be speaking on it if I was going to charge. So it would be $0. So if that investigation, just ask me if you need any help into that if this motion is successful.
Can I just ask the question? What sort of time frame are we looking at this? I'm just conscious, like if we go through the business paper today, we've gone through an organisational change and we've still got WAP targets we're going to get. I'm just wondering what sort of priority, because I personally think we need to do it. I'm just sort of questioning the timing of this investigation now, given the little bit of workload that's already sort of come through from today's meeting.
I think what we have to do is leave it to the general manager to determine what an appropriate time frame is within the existing workload.
I don't know how it's going to be done. So once I'll have a chat with some of the councils that have changed, and I'll bring an interim report back to you.
So I think when we get the interim report, it'll may suggest a time frame. But
Yeah, I'm just conscious of, obviously there's a lot going on at the moment, and I just sort of don't want to throw another one on the pile with the priority. I just to me, I think it's needed, but I don't think it's a priority.
Member White, sorry.
Yes, no, I support the motion, but I also think it's signalling our direction rather than a priority. And I think it's not clear what we do, and that helps to make it clear. So I support it.
Chairman, I support it. I think it's a good idea, but again, I think we've got to do it within our available resources.
Absolutely.
Noting our major priority is to achieve compliance by. Sorry.
I'll wrap up once anyone else wants to talk, and then I'll.
Anyone else?
Just make a quick comment to answer.
You know, I'm happy with that. I think it's real good. It will just identify us much more clearly to these persons that don't know where to go for a weed issue. Particularly as was said earlier by our GM, you know, we've got a lot of subdivisional blocks where people aren't interested, but if they know there's weeds, we're probably much more easily identified than the Upper Macquarie County Council. Fine for the old generation guys like we've been around forever and a day. But yeah, no, so if we can get a report back in a time frame, it sounds good to me.
That's right. If Google could find Weeds Authority Central West, and then up comes Up Macquarie, you know, Weeds Authority, then you've made an enormous gain.
Yes, great. All right, so I think.
So I'm just going to quickly, to a reason why I've moved it now to answer Member Smith's comments is we're looking at the website. So you're better off not to do a website and then redo the website. Let's do it at once. Hence, we're funded it this financial year. It's in the budget. So that's why, hence why I've moved it now, so that if we progress with the website, we can progress with this at the same time, hopefully. So, but again, no time frame was put here, but I hope within the next couple of meetings before the end of the year, we can come back with some form of time frame. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a recommendation.
All right.
Now it's time to move into confidential. The motion is that council notes in accordance with section 9(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 1993, the general manager is the opinion that business on the agenda designated confidential and listed in the following table 1 is of a kind referred to in section 10(a)(2) of the Act and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting close to the meeting of the public. And first, in accordance with section 10(b)(1) of the Act, it is considered discussion of business in open meeting when balance be contrary to the public interest. B, council resolve in a closed confidential committee of the whole council to consider business identified as confidential, together with any confidential late reports tabled at the meeting, pursuant to section 10(a)(1) and 3 of the Local Government Act 1993. The meeting and public is excluded from the meeting on the basis for business to be considered is classified confidential with provisions of section 10(a)(2) of the Act. D, correspondence and reports relevant to the subject business be withheld from access. And E, in accordance with section 10(a)(4), members of the public are invited to make representations to the council as to whether the matter should or should not be dealt with in confidential committee of the whole council. Items to be dealt with in confidential 12 prosecution cases, 13 general manager's performance agreement, 14 rebar security property inspections in June 2022. I have a mover that moves us into confidential, please. Member Watt and Member Leslie. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Cease the recording. Right, we're back in line. Can we please read the 3 resolutions that arose out of the confidential section of the business agenda, please? First involves prosecution cases.
So the first was, there's 2 parts to it. The prosecution case is number 12, that council notes the report. Number 2, chairman, deputy chairman and general manager will review and determine which matters proceed to prosecution and report to council.
Yes, and the second one is the general manager's performance agreement.
Yep, council notes the report. And 14,
14, weed biosecurity property inspections for June 2022.
council notes the report.
Thank you. close of the meeting is at 5:05, noting the next. There is a workshop on the 9th of September with an extraordinary general meeting. The workshop will commence at 12, and then the next normal meeting is on the 21st of October 2022 at 2 p.m. And that will be held at Laney Council Chambers, I think.
Laney. Jesus.